Welcome to MNC PPC Department of Parks and Recreation's celebration of May is National Physical Fitness and Sports Month. Throughout the month of May, we challenge you to get up, get fit, and play by participating in free activities, classes, and events throughout Prince George's County. Enjoy this fun, interactive, and educational session from a community expert. Be sure to share what you learned during this session with a friend or family member. Welcome.
Again, welcome and thank you for joining us for this month nutrition workshop as we celebrate May is National Physical Fitness and Sports Month. My name is Edeline Dormaville and I am the Health and Wellness Assistant with the Department of Parks and Recreation. Before we begin, let's go over a few housekeeping items. You should see a microphone icon at the bottom of your screen like you see here on this screen. You will need to click this icon to mute yourself. We would ask that you remain muted to limit any distractions during the program. Next, I want to draw your attention to the camera icon. You will use this to turn your camera off and on. Please be mindful that when your camera is on, all participants joining us this evening will be able to see your screen. You have the option to keep your camera on or turn it off. But remember, we want to minimize distractions throughout the program and keep the focus on the presentation being provided. Next, I would like to show you how to pin a participant. To do this, you will need to click on the Show Participants icon. In the Participants column, select the individual you would want to view on your screen, then click or tap the three dots icon to reveal a menu. From the drop-down menu, select Pin for Me. The pinned participant becomes the focus in your view and only your view, regardless of the speaker. To unpin, repeat these 3 steps and select Unpin. Repeat the same process to pin an additional participant. Please note that if you are in a web browser, the PowerPoint presentation will be in a smaller window at the top or bottom of your screen. Next, I would like to draw your attention to the closed caption feature. You can turn on live closed captions during the meeting. To do this, you will click on the 3 dots for more options. Then you can scroll down and find the option that says Turn on Live Captions. Then you will start to see captions at the bottom of your screen. You may choose to turn this feature on if needed. The last icon I will tell you about is the chat icon. This will allow you to ask questions throughout the program. To type a question, you will just click on the icon like the one you see on the screen to bring up the chat box, and it should take you to what you will see next. Next slide. Once you see the chat box, as you see here on the screen, there will be a space for you to type your questions in. Hit enter and we will see your question on the screen. Please ask your questions throughout the program, and there will be a time at the end to answer your questions. We are looking forward to having a great discussion. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our trained professional for the evening. Angela Pareco is a registered dietitian and licensed dietitian nutritionist and has her certificate of training in pediatric weight management. Born and raised on Kent Island, she received her Bachelor's of Science in Dietetics from the University of Maryland, College Park. Angela loves seeing customers celebrate their accomplishments, no matter how big or small. As someone who does not love cooking, she likes to keep it simple but nutritious in the kitchen. Angela is a self-described cliche millennial who loves avocado toast, craft beer, and podcasts. Welcome, Angela.
Thanks so much for having me. Thank you for the introduction, Adeline. So we'll go ahead and get started. And today we are talking about nutrition for athletic performance. And, this is really focusing on kind of just the basics. So it's not going to be anything too wild. It's just to help fuel you well, or the information you need to help fuel you well for, your general day-to-day exercise, right? So let's go ahead and get started. So we'll talk about macronutrients and how they impact our exercise performance. We'll talk about what we should eat before a workout and after a workout to help get the most, quote unquote gains, right? All right, so before we jump into the specific foods that help maximize our workouts and our recovery, let's spend a couple of moments talking, or sorry, let's talk about, where we should start. So you want to start with MyPlate, right? So you've probably seen MyPlate before, and that's the USDA's visual representation of how we should structure our plates to make sure that we're getting enough to fuel ourselves throughout the day. Whether we're working out or not, hopefully we are getting some physical activity in though. And what's important here is, don't miss the forest for the trees. A lot of times when it comes to physical activity or, honestly just like eating healthy in general, people want, those quick fixes. They want to know what supplements they should be taking. They want to know, is this superfood, what I should be doing? And the key thing is balance, right? You want to start with balance before you start wondering about, if you should be taking a supplement or this or that. Start with the basics, right? It's really easy to jump to those quote unquote quick fixes or maybe those like fad diets. But start with the basics and then see what tweaks you want to make for your own self, for your own performance. So the plate that you see on this slide that has like the blue box around it, that's the general MyPlate. And that's where we recommend everybody start, right, for a good, healthy diet. Now, as you start to get into more intense physical activity, maybe you're training for like a marathon or doing more weightlifting and things like that, then maybe you want to try to adapt to what's the athlete's plate, which you see in the bottom corner of this screen. So the key difference here is you'll see a bigger portion of grains and a bigger portion of or a bigger portion of vegetables. It says fruits and vegetables, but ideally you want to try to make that more vegetables and then save your fruits for like snacks. That's kind of what we always recommend. Try to save your fruits for snacks because fruits and like dairy, you see the dairy on the MyPlate. Fruits and dairy make excellent snacks because it gives you two nutrients that help you feel full and satisfied, which are fiber and protein. So that's kind of where you want to start. And when it comes to fueling your body, there's a couple of key things. So macronutrients, which are carbohydrates, proteins, and fats, and our fluids. And then treats. You want to save space for treats in your diet too, because, eating healthy is awesome and amazing, but it's a little bit more fun when you save room for treats. So this is kind of a similar layout to that athlete's plate that I was just talking about before. You can see protein foods. Let me turn on the laser thing so you can see what I'm pointing to. Protein foods here, our carb-containing foods here, fruits and vegetables, and treats in moderation, right? So let's really go into those carbohydrates or those macronutrients, and we'll start with carbs and see how they really impact our exercise and our workout. So carbohydrates kind of get a bad reputation, right? People are always working on, their low carb diets and this and that, and don't eat carbs, but carbs are great. Carbs are our friend. Carbohydrates, they are essential for helping maintain our energy levels. They really help us power through a workout, and they fight to delay that fatigue, and they support recovery. So carbohydrates really are our body's preferred energy source or our body's preferred fuel source. And in fact, they are actually the only fuel source used during intensive exercise, like sprinting or things, of that nature. An adequate intake of carbohydrates will help spare muscle breakdown. So oftentimes if we're not getting enough carbohydrates, our body needs to create that source of energy, and it might do that from breaking down some of our muscles and turning that into a type of fuel that our body can use. So we want to make sure that we are getting in those carbohydrates throughout the day. Our main sources of carbohydrates in our diet are coming from things like fruits, grains, and especially for a healthy diet in general, we want to put a little bit of emphasis on whole grains because whole grains are going to provide us with a little bit more nutrition. They have more fiber than refined grains. So when we're talking about whole grains versus refined grains, like you see on this slide, those Kodiak cake, which is a pancake mix. So those are made with it's made with whole wheat flour versus your regular pancake mix you might buy from the store is made from refined flour or white flour, right? So the whole wheat flour is going to have a little bit more nutrition to it. So we want to make sure that we're opting for whole grains, which you see on this slide, complex versus simple carbs. So complex carbs are our whole grain carbs. And simple carbs are carbohydrates that our body can break down quickly and turn into energy quickly. Now, there is a place for those, especially when it comes to like our pre-workout snacks or meals. And I'll talk about that shortly. But in general, when we are fueling ourselves throughout the day, we want to make sure that we're opting for those whole grain sources because it's more sustainable energy. So opting for whole grains, so such as whole wheat flour, whole wheat bread, oats, brown rice, if you like it, don't eat things you don't like. And then things like starchy vegetables like squashes, sweet potato, peas and corn. Those are going to be considered more carbohydrate dense vegetables. And fruits. Fruits are an excellent source of carbohydrates. So we want to make sure that we are fueling ourselves with carbohydrates throughout the day. And if you remember MyPlate, it was about 1/4 of your plate should be those carb-containing foods for general health. And then as you start to really amp up your workouts, maybe working in, 1/3 of your plate to be carbohydrates. All right, next we have protein. So when it comes to the macronutrients, right, we have the macronutrients are carbs, fats, and protein. And carbs and fats are kind of like every decade, it's either people are demonizing carbs or they're demonizing fats, right? But protein really doesn't seem to be affected by any of that. And protein is talked about a lot when it comes to exercise, when it comes to working out, especially, when it comes to weightlifting. And weightlifters aren't the only people who need protein in their diet, right? We do want to make sure that we are getting adequate protein. So protein is made up of amino acids, and these are the essential building blocks of our body's muscles and our tissues. So when it comes to gaining muscle, recovering, fullness, protein is going to be important. And protein, fun fact about protein, it has a higher TEF, which stands for thermic effect of food, which essentially that just means that our body uses more calories to digest protein than it does other macronutrients. So protein, it's slow digesting, so it helps you feel fuller longer. And it also helps with satiety signals that are sent to the brain that tells your body that you're full. And they're most effectively used when spread throughout the day, and we can get them from a wide variety of sources. So typically when you think about protein foods, you think maybe animal proteins, right? You think chicken, fish, beef. And those are excellent sources of proteins, but we can also get them from dairy. Like on this slide, you see Greek yogurt. Greek yogurt is actually a really good source of protein. One serving has about 17 grams of protein, which is a good amount. And you can also get protein from grains. You can get them from plant foods, like you see edamame up here. Edamame is like a soybean, and it's another excellent source of protein, and it's plant-based protein, so it's also going to have some fiber in there as well. Now, the thing with protein is we want to make sure that we're getting enough, not too much, and not too little. So the recommendation for our protein needs are about 1.2 or 1 to 1.4 grams per kilogram of body weight per day. So for example, if you are 150 pounds, 1.2 grams per kilogram would be about 82 grams a day. And What's important to note is that if you are someone who's working out more, like maybe you really are, lifting lots of weights, getting in the gym, working on those gains, you might need a little bit more, maybe a little bit more than the 1.4. You might need up to like maybe 1.6 grams per kilograms, but it's super personalized. You can always reach out to a registered dietitian, especially any registered dietitian at Giant, and we'd be happy to help you figure out what protein needs are best for you. So you can see on this slide fish and some almond butter and some edamame and Greek yogurt. Those are all great protein foods. I did add in a slide for some other protein foods, like some more plant-based protein options, in case anyone is, working on a plant-based diet and needs some suggestions on how to kind of boost the protein. Because oftentimes in our standard American diet, we do get enough protein in our day. But once you start following like a plant-based diet, you need to just pay a little bit more attention to food labels to make sure that you're optimizing your protein intake throughout the day. So here are a couple of swaps that you can make in your regular day-to-day products that are going to help boost your protein intake if that's something you're trying to do. So I talked about Kodiak cakes on one of the other slides about carbohydrates, but Kodiak cakes are a protein-packed pancake mix. They also have other products too, like frozen waffles and things like that. What's great about these is that they are 100% whole grain, so they're a good source of fiber, and they add in some protein to them too, I think in the form of whey protein. So you're getting a decent amount. It looks like 14 grams of protein per serving and 5 grams of fiber. Then you see Banza pasta, which is a pasta made from chickpeas. And so since it's made from chickpeas, which are a plant-based protein source, you're getting a nice protein-heavy pasta. So let's say if maybe you are following a vegetarian diet and you need a nice protein-heavy meal, one serving of these is going to give you 23 grams of protein per serving and 8 grams of fiber. And one thing I didn't mention on the previous slide is typically a good rule of thumb is to try to aim for about 30 grams of protein per meal to help get you in a good range. Dave's Killer Bread has a lot of protein-packed bread products. They have bagels, they've got whole wheat bread, which is always great, and they've got a good amount of protein in them. I think it's about like 5 grams per slice. And then Hemp Hearts, if you are trying to figure out how you can kind of like boost the protein of a meal, like let's say you're having salad, adding in a couple tablespoons of hemp seeds is a great way to boost protein. They have about 10 grams of protein per serving, which a serving is normally about 2 to 3 tablespoons. So it's a great way to add protein to any meal. They're essentially flavorless, and they are, I think, one of the higher protein seeds that we have. All right, so our last macronutrient is fats. So fats are super important for our diet, for our overall health. They are the storehouse for vitamins and energy. So a couple vitamins actually require fat for our body to use them, and those are vitamins A, D, E, and K. And so we really need fat to help store those vitamins and provide us nutrient support in between meals and during that recovery period. So we want to try to aim for about 20 to 35% of our daily calories coming from fat. Now, the key thing when it comes to fat is we do want to put an emphasis on those unsaturated fats. So those fats that are going to be a little bit more heart healthy. So when we're talking about unsaturated fats, think things like olive oil, think things that are going to be like when you're talking about cooking oils, think things that are liquid at room temperature. So olive oil, avocado oil, those are great sources of unsaturated fats. Almonds, any nuts and seeds are going to be good sources of unsaturated fats. Avocados. Cheese is a good source of fats, or dairy products in general are a good source of fat. Typically that is, they do carry these saturated fats, which is a fat we want to work to decrease in our diet, but it's not something we need to cut out entirely. The reason we want to choose unsaturated fats over saturated fats is just because saturated fats may have a negative impact on our heart health and our brain health. So making sure that we're opting for unsaturated fat products. And then when we're going for dairy products, just trying to choose like the lower fat options to help cut back on our saturated fat intake. So that's our macronutrients and how they impact, our bodily functions. Then we have our pre-workout or our fueling up part of the presentation. So when it comes to our pre-workout, you want to think simple carbs. So I talked about simple carbs versus complex carbs earlier and said how we want to make sure we're getting a good amount of complex carbs in our diet. However, before a workout, we want to aim for some simple carbs if you're hungry. So normally, a standard eating pattern of 3 meals a day and 2 snacks, that should fuel you adequately for a general workout. But let's say maybe you are, you ate lunch at 12 and you're doing a workout at 4 and you didn't have like your 2 p.m. snack or something like that. Or maybe you just weren't hungry, but you do feel like you need a little bit of something before you go work out. Then you want to definitely opt for something that's going to provide you with a little bit of simple carbs. So think low fiber, low fat, and low protein. That's what you want to think when it comes to your pre-workout snack. So think things like Rice Krispies, dried fruit, fresh fruit, or like these little applesauce squeezy packs. These are all going to be great to have before a workout, and you want to try to aim for about 30 to 60 minutes before a workout, maybe closer to the 60, just to, prevent any like cramping or anything like that. You can choose things like white breads, pastas, rice, potatoes, pretzels, cereal, fruit snacks, granola bars. You want to keep the protein, like I said before, a little bit lower just because that slows down digestion. So about maybe 10 grams of protein or less. And you want to think low fiber as well, just because that slows down digestion too. And if you're someone who likes to work out in the morning, and maybe you prefer to do a fasted workout, make sure that you're getting in a decent amount of carbs, throughout the day consistently. So that way you'll have enough fuel to kind of help fuel you through that early morning workout. Maybe having, a little bit more carbs at night or something like that. Now, when we're talking about a post-workout or recovery nutrition, you want to think about the 3 R's. So refuel, repair, and rehydrate. So we want to refuel our energy, repair our muscle tissues, and rehydrate for fluid loss. So we want to try to rehydrate and refuel within about 30 to 60 minutes post-workout. And you want to aim to drink about 16 to 24 ounces of fluid loss for every pound lost within 2 hours of exercise. So I don't really recommend, weighing yourself before and after workouts, unless maybe it's a super intense workout or you're doing like something super intense many days during the week. But you do want to just try to, get in a bottle of water after a workout for sure. When it comes to what types of foods you should be eating, think about carbohydrates. So this is when you want to try those whole grain sources or more of those complex options if you can. So think things that are 100% whole grain or whole wheat, some high fiber starches. This is going to help replenish our glycogen stores. So I didn't talk about that earlier, but our glycogen stores are basically our body's stored form of glucose. And it is especially useful during once we've used up, the carbs that we have just recently eaten. So a lot of times, like in long runs and things like that, your body will use our glycogen stores. Then we have protein, of course, right? So we want to aim for a variety of lean meats, chicken, eggs, seafood, beans, legumes, and nuts. You want to be sure to get that protein in after a workout because it's going to help repair that muscle tissue. And one beverage that is really common as like a post-workout beverage or snack or something is chocolate milk. So chocolate milk is like a perfect balance of carbs and protein. to both optimize glycogen resynthesis and protein repair. So you can see this Fairlife chocolate milk in the corner here. Fairlife tends to be a little bit higher in protein than regular milk, and I think oftentimes or maybe all the times, it's lactose free. But so that's a good option to have, especially if you're in a pinch after workout, just going for some sort of chocolate milk. And then when it comes to hydration, you want to make sure that you're aiming for, maybe a bottle or two of water. You can also choose to opt for maybe some hydrating fruits or vegetables like cucumber or watermelon. You could have a nice smoothie or a shake after a workout as well. Sometimes those are easy to digest and they can enter your system fairly quickly post-workout and can be a little bit easier on the stomach, and it helps assist in hydration. So one example of I'll give an example of a smoothie in a couple slides. So when you're hydrating in general, so we talked about hydration in terms of recovery, but you want to make sure that you're also hydrating throughout the day. So a few things to keep in mind is that you want your pee to be slightly yellow and you should be drinking before you're thirsty, right? Once you're thirsty, that's a sign that you're really starting to be dehydrated. So you want to make sure that you are drinking fluids throughout the day. So typically the recommendation for men ages 19 to 30 is about 3.7 liters a day, and for women about 2.7 liters a day. A good place to start also is with like the classic 8 ounces, 8-ounce glasses a day. That's 64 ounces, and then seeing the color of your pee and seeing if you need to adjust that. Now, before exercise, you want to make sure that you are adequately hydrated, getting at least a bottle of water 2 hours before exercise. And 15 minutes before exercise, you might want to aim for about 8 ounces. Now, if you are doing a high intensity workout, you want to try to get 4 ounces of fluid every 15 to 20 minutes during exercise, especially if you are losing a lot of fluids via sweat. And if it's longer than an hour, then you might want to do a sports drink like Gatorade or a Powerade or something like that to help replenish the electrolytes that we tend to lose during sweat. So here's a couple quick breakfast examples. If you are someone who likes to wake up and work out, and maybe you do want to have something to eat on your way to the gym or before your workout. So these are some breakfast protein bars with 8 grams per serving. So it's just a little bit of protein to help you, kind of fill up a little bit. The protein waffles have about 12 grams of protein. So that might be, more for if you're going to work out in the next hour or two. And then these breakfast burritos, have 24 grams of protein. So this is maybe if you're going for a proper breakfast and you're on the go, that's a good option. Now, smoothies are super popular in the workout space. And when it comes to exercising, a lot of people like to rely on a smoothie before or after a workout. So especially if you're making a smoothie for a meal replacement, or if you're making a smoothie after a workout, you really want to make sure that you're building a better smoothie, right? So first you want to start off with picking your produce. So try to opt for fruits and vegetables, just because, especially if you're doing a smoothie as a meal replacement, you want to think about that those MyPlate guidelines, right? Which encourage, at least a quarter plate of vegetables at a meal. So you definitely want to try to include them in your smoothie as well. Some vegetables that I personally think go great in smoothies are spinach. Spinach blends up really easily and it doesn't have a strong taste, compared to kale. I know kale is super popular. Personally, I don't like to put kale in my smoothies because I don't have the best blender, so it doesn't blend up well. And it has a really strong taste, but spinach is a little bit easier. Also, another great option is, You can buy like the frozen rice cauliflower. You don't have to do that, but it's a little bit, cheaper, and it blends up really nicely. And you can't taste it, and it's already frozen, so it helps keep your smoothie cold. So that's another good option to add to a smoothie as well. Then you do want to add some sort of protein source to your smoothie. So that can be whatever works best for you, right? You don't have to do a protein powder if you want to. You certainly can. But there are other sources of protein that you can add to a smoothie. I mentioned how Greek yogurt has about 17 grams of protein per serving. And normally when you're adding a protein powder, you're getting about 25 grams of protein. So you're not too far off with that scoop of yogurt in there. You could also add something like that Fairlife milk or regular milk. Milk has a decent amount of protein per serving. I think it's about like 10 grams. So that's pretty good. And then you can also add in some sorts of nut butters or seeds, like peanut butter, or flax seeds are great to add to a smoothie because they help get in some omega-3 fatty acids, which are good for our heart health. And flax seeds are actually good to put in smoothies because it grinds them up, which makes them, you can more easily absorb like their nutritional benefits when they're ground up. Then feel free to add any sort of boost to your smoothie if you want. Maybe you want to add a little bit of cocoa powder to add some sweetness. Maybe you want to add like some matcha powder, get like a nice green tea flavor and get some caffeine. You could also add oatmeal and nuts. I know some people like to make smoothies that they can chew a little bit. So if you're someone who likes to do that, adding oatmeal or nuts might be good. And then choosing your blending base. So if you've opted for milk for your protein source, then that should be good. But you want to try to add like a half a cup or a cup of liquid, and it can be water, tea, coffee, milk, whatever you want to add there. Try to avoid juice since you're getting a pretty high natural sugar content from the fruit. But if you want to add a little splash of juice, you could. So just some final thoughts. Remember to create nutrient-dense meals throughout your day, not just, on the days you're working out or not just as your pre or post-workout. Think nutrient-dense all day long. Make sure that you're hydrating before, during, and after your workouts. When it comes to our pre-workout snacks, think fast-acting carbs. And when it comes to post-workout, think carbs and protein to help you really repair and refuel. And if you want to learn more about any of our healthy living services, you can scan these QR codes here. We have a podcast, a Facebook group, and other online nutrition classes. But that is all I have for you all today. Are there any questions?
Nope, doesn't look like we have any questions. Thank you so much for that presentation. It was awesome.
Yeah, of course. And I see you said that you love Kodiak cakes and banza noodles. Yes, me too. Banza, yes. Bonza, I don't know how you say it.
Yes, I made baked ziti on Sunday with my banza noodles actually.
So. Ooh, yum.
And it's really good. You can't taste the difference. So
yeah, that's why I like the chickpea-based pastas more than like the lentil ones or something like that. Because yeah, they taste really similar.
Yeah, it's really good. Oh, I have one question. Katrina said, I have seen some people put lemon juice and or vinegar in their smoothie. Any opinions on that?
If you like that, then you can definitely go for that. A lot of times when it comes to apple cider vinegar, sometimes that gets a lot of health benefits associated with it, but I don't think the research is quite there. I think the only thing that it may help with is blood pressure a little bit, but it's probably, more so, whatever you're swapping and using the apple cider vinegar for. So I wouldn't say it's something necessary to add to your smoothie, but if you like the way it tastes, then you can certainly do that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Katrina.
All right. Doesn't look like we have any more questions, so I'll go along. I'll go ahead. Thank you for joining us today. Before we leave, I have 2 announcements. The first one, we want your feedback, so be on the lookout for an email with a link to complete a survey for a chance to win an Amazon gift card, along with any other resources from tonight's presentation. And please be sure to join us for our next nutrition workshop on May 24th from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. Thank you so much for attending tonight, and have a great rest of your evening, everyone.
Thank you again for joining us, and we hope you can join us for more programs throughout the month of May to celebrate National Physical Fitness and Sports Month. For more videos to help get you up, get fit, and play, visit the Department of Parks and Recreation's online resource center at pgparks.com or the Health and Wellness Virtual Library at wellness.pgparks.com. To find more National Physical Fitness and Sports Month activities, classes, and events, visit pgparks.com and search for May Is.